Fred works in a factory. He does not have a wife, and he gets quite a lot of money every week. He loves cars and has a new one every year. He likes driving very fast, and he always buys small, fast red cars. He sometimes takes his mother out in them, and then she always says, "But Fred, why do you drive these cars? We are almost sitting on the road." Then Fred laughs and is happy. He likes being very near the road. Fred is very tall and very fat. Last week, he came out of a shop and went to his car. There was a small boy near it. He was looking at the beautiful red car. Then he looked up and saw Fred. "How do you get into that small car?" he asked him. Fred laughed and said, "I don't get into it. I put it on." White Bridge was a small village, and old people often came and lived there. Some of them had a lot of old furniture, and they often did not want some of it because they were in a smaller house now. So every Saturday morning they put it out, and other people came and looked at it, and sometimes they took it away because they wanted it. Every Saturday, Mr. and Mrs. Morton put a very ugly old bear's head out at the side of their gate, but nobody wanted it. Then last Saturday they wrote, "I'm very lonely here. Please take me," on the piece of paper and put it near the bear's head. They went to the town and came home in the evening. There were now two bears' heads in the front of their house, and there was another piece of paper. It said, "I was lonely too." There were a lot of men's clubs in London a few years ago. Men went there and read their newspapers quietly, or drank, or had meals with their friends. All of these men's clubs had a lot of very good servants. At every club, one of the servants was a doorman. Mr. Grace was the doorman of one of these clubs. He was 55 years old, and he had gray hair and a big gray mustache. The telephone rang in his office at 6 o'clock in the evening, and a woman spoke to him. She said, "Are you the doorman of the George Club?" "Yes, I am," Mr. Grace answered. "Please give my husband a message," the woman said. "Your husband isn't at the club this evening," Mr. Grace answered. "But I haven't told you his name," the woman said angrily. "That isn't necessary," Mr. Grace answered. "No husband is ever at the club." Harry did not stop his car at some traffic lights when they were red, and he hit another car. Harry jumped out and went to it. There was an old man in the car. He was very frightened and said to Harry, "What are you doing? You nearly killed me." "Yes," Harry answered. "I'm very sorry." He took a bottle out of his car and said, "Drink some of this. Then you'll feel better." He gave the man some whiskey, and the man drank it. But then he shot it again. "You nearly killed me." Harry gave him the bottle again, and the old man drank a lot of the whiskey. Then he smiled and said to Harry, "Thank you. I feel much better now. But why aren't you drinking?" "Oh, well," Harry answered, "I don't want any whiskey now. I'm going to sit here and wait for the police." Mary was an English girl, but she lived in Rome. She was 6 years old. Last year, her mother said to her, "You're 6 years old now, Mary, and you're going to begin going to a school here. You're going to like it very much because it's a nice school." "Is it an English school?" Mary asked. "Yes, it is," her mother said. Mary went to the school and enjoyed her lessons. Her mother always took her to school in the morning and brought her home in the afternoon. Last Monday, her mother went to the school at 4 o'clock and Mary ran out of her class. "We've got a new girl in our class today, Mommy," she said. "She's 6 years old too, and she's very nice, but she isn't English, she's German." "Does she speak English?" Mary's mother asked. "No, but she laughs in English," Mary said happily. Fred was a young soldier in a big camp. During the week, they always worked very hard, but it was Saturday and all the young soldiers were free. So their officers said to them, "You can go into the town this afternoon, but first I'm going to inspect you." Fred came to the officer, and the officer said to him, "Your hair's very long. Go to the barber and then came back to me again." Fred ran to the barber's shop, but it was closed because it was Saturday. Fred was very sad for a few minutes, but then he smiled and went back to the officer. "Are my boots clean now, sir?" he asked. The officer did not look at Fred's hair. He looked at his boots and said, "Yes, they are much better now. You can go out and next week first clean your boots and then come to me." Mr. Miller had a shop in a big town. He sold ladies' clothes, and he always had 2 or 3 shop girls to help him. They were always young because they were cheaper than older women, but none of them worked for him for very long because they were young and they did not meet many boys in a woman's shop. Last month, a pretty girl came to work for him. Her name was Helen, and she was very good. After a few days, Mr. Miller saw a young man coming into the shop. He went straight to Helen, spoke to her for a few minutes, and then went out of the shop again. Mr. Miller was rather surprised, and when the young man left, he went to Helen and said, "The young man didn't buy anything. What did he want to see?" Helen answered, "Me, at 5:30. One of Harry's feet was bigger than the other. I can never find boots and shoes for my feet." He said to his friend Dick. "Why don't you go to the shoemaker?" Dick said. "A good one can make you the right shoes." "I've never been to a shoemaker," Harry said. "Aren't they very expensive?" "No," Dick said. "Some of them aren't. There's a good one in our village, and he's quite cheap. Here's his address." He wrote something on a piece of paper and gave it to Harry. Harry went to the shoemaker in Dick's village a few days later, and the shoemaker made him some shoes. Harry went to the shop again a week later and looked at the shoes. Then he said to the shoemaker angrily, "You're a silly man," I said. "Make one shoes bigger than the other, but you've made one smaller than the other." When Alan was young, he played a lot of football and he was very good at it. But then he went and worked in a town and there was no team for him there. So he stopped playing. Then he began to get really fat. So he thought, I've stopped playing football and now I'm getting fat. What am I going to do? He thought about it for a few days and he said to himself, I know I'll play tennis. He had a few lessons and then played for a few months. He met a nice girl at the tennis club one day and they played a game of tennis against another young man and woman. Alan played very badly and he was very angry with himself. I've never played as badly as this before, he said to the girl. Oh, she said, you've played before, have you?